Hey guys, what's going on? It is Jordan. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for stopping by. Alright, so today I am doing a 6-month review on this camera. This has been my go-to body for mostly all of my photos and videos on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, besides the one that I'm filming on right now. And so we're going to go ahead and get into this 6-month review. How does it stack up after 6 months of having the EOS RP? So let's go ahead and dive into this bad boy right here. This camera, and I always do this. I always do the prices mainly because I just want you guys to know July 2021. So brand new $9.99 for the body, or you can get a refurbished one for $100 less, $8.99. If you want a body and a lens, it's $12.99 for the 24-105 f4 to 7.1. I couldn't find a refurbished model on Canon's website with that same lens combination. So if you're going to buy it, you would get the body and the lens separately. I couldn't find a refurbished lens, so you're probably going to wind up spending an extra $400 or $500 for the lens itself on top of the refurbished body. Probably just better at that point to just buy this camera brand new with the lens. So that's that. Now, I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, this is the second or third rendition of the R system. So the Canon EOS R came out first. I believe the EOS RA came out second and this one came out third, or vice versa. This one came out second and the RA came out third. Not 100% sure. Anyways, full frame. It's pretty lightweight. I mean, honestly, fantastic ergonomics on this camera. I absolutely love this camera, to be honest. I made the jump from DSLR, APS-C DSLRs to full frame mirrorless, and honestly, I have not been displeased with this at all. There are some cons, which I will get into here in a little bit, obviously going over the pros first. So, decent low light capabilities on this camera. I have found images up to 10,000 ISO to be somewhat pretty usable. If you're looking to really minimize the noise, I would say stick between 6,000 and 8,000 ISO. But I still think that even at 10,000 ISO, the images are still pretty usable with a little bit of denoise in post. So when you're going to edit your photos, if you're shooting that high of an ISO, just add a little bit of noise reduction. I think you'll be okay. If you need absolute professional photos, just stay below 10,000. Like I said, probably about 6,000 to 8,000. I think you should be good to go. Pretty much anything past 10,000 is kind of noisy on this, so take it as it is. Budget, full frame mirrorless camera, I think it's a pretty good win. So some more cool features on this that I have kind of used. I don't use them all the time, seldomly, but I mean, you get cool focus bracketing. So if you are a macro shooter, if you love to do macro photography, or if you love to do landscape photography, focus bracketing I think is going to be probably your go-to jam. And the main reason why I say that is because from front to back you're going to get everything in focus without actually having to use a really high number aperture. So if you enjoy shooting at an f4, let's say maybe you have some low light situation and you just can't push it to an f12 or an f14 to do some landscape photography, you can do focus bracketing. It does take a little bit. Obviously you do need a tripod too, but you do get some amazing results, especially with macro, so just keep that into consideration if you are planning on picking up one of these, or if you're just a straight macro shooter. I think that you would be pleasantly surprised with the results you get from the focus bracketing. Now, on top of that as well, you do also get time lapse. I have started to incorporate some time lapses like into my vlogs and stuff. There's custom settings you can do. You can choose like customs 1, 2, 3, basically like presets, and then there is like a fully customizable custom button for time lapses on this. You can set your intervals, you can set the number of shots, you can go to town on it. It does everything in 4K. So yeah, that's pretty good. I don't really necessarily do a lot of time lapses, but I'm kind of starting to realize why that they're pretty popular for some people. I kind of wish I lived in a larger city, so this way I could do some cool time lapses, but it is what it is. I use it whenever I do vlogs and stuff. Cool to capture a sunset with, especially if you go to the beach or something. Just throw it into a time lapse and just watch that sunset over the horizon. Pretty cool. Or if you live in the mountains too, I mean, you know, whatever. Along with that, you also get dual pixel autofocus. So you get dual pixel autofocus in 1080p on this camera, as well as in photos mode. Basically, eye tracking is superb on this, especially for anybody that doesn't want to break the bank for like an R6 or just like an EOS R. Especially right now, I know Canon's supposed to be coming out with an R3. No telling what the price on that's going to be, but it looks like it's probably going to be around the same price, if not more, of the R5. So just keep that into consideration. If you're looking to pick up your first full frame camera, this might be the best option for you right now. So on site here, you do have all your ports. You do have a mini HDMI out, as well as a USB-C. You have your shutter release cable, an input jack, and a pair of headphones, so if you need to monitor audio and stuff like that. The nice thing with this on the side is you can charge. Well, you can't use the camera while you're charging, although you can charge it through USB-C. Another good feature with this too is this is a really, really good webcam. I actually did a podcast with the Drone Geek. Very good, very cool person. I would consider him a pretty good friend. Basically just met him through Instagram, but he had me on his very first podcast, and I used this camera basically as just my my main webcam. And basically I just downloaded the EOS webcam utilities from Canon, got a long enough USB-C cable to run from the camera to my computer in the back here, and then basically just kind of let it do its thing. I mean, I threw the RF 50mm f1.8 on here, put it in autofocus, and just let it go to town. Didn't have any sort of issues with that. So something to keep in mind if you do a lot of like live streaming, or if you do a lot of like tele visits, like if you're a doctor or somebody that does like a lot of televisits. I forget the name of it exactly. Anyways, if you do a lot of anything that needs or requires a good webcam, and you also want something to record videos and take great, amazing photos, this may also be the camera for you. You should already know the specs on this, but 26 megapixel images, full frame. You get 4K, 24 frames a second with contrast autofocus. I don't really recommend that if you're trying to get some like professional looking stuff. 1080, 60, 30, 24 with dual pixel autofocus, so you can't go wrong. I use the 1080 24 on this for the majority of pretty much everything. I do use the 4K every now and again, basically just to get like the extra crispiness from the resolution on this camera, but other than that, the 4K crops it in at a 1.6 times crop. So basically, if you're using a 50, you're going to get an 80mm equivalent. So if you want something that's going to be equivalent to a 50mm, you'd probably want to shoot on something like a 35 or 40mm. Other than that, fantastic and solid. You can't go wrong. So the nice thing I love about this camera too is I didn't ever notice this on the SL3 or the T7, but with the EOS RP, I have noticed through the Canon Connect app, I can actually shoot photos and I can shoot video. So let's say maybe I was at like a national park or something, and I had this on a tripod and I wanted to like shoot some video, but it was just me. I didn't have anybody else around. I could throw this into autofocus through the lens and then set this on a tripod, connect it with my phone through the Canon Connect app, and then I could shoot a video pretty much however I wanted from wherever I wanted. I can adjust all the ISO, the shutter speeds, the aperture, pretty much anything that you can do from this camera, from the touchscreen, or from any of the buttons on the camera, you can do through the phone, through the Canon Connect app, and it's pretty simple. It really is a great tool for the solo creator, so I will go ahead and give that another plus. I definitely think that that is a pro for anybody that's looking to just kind of step into making videos of any sort, whether you're starting a YouTube channel for vlogging, whether you're starting a YouTube channel for maybe like exercise, maybe you just want to start your own kind of like tech channels or whatever. Highly recommend it. Just something to get you started with. Canon Connect app, solo shooters, you're good to go. Another nice thing too, so I have been doing a little bit more vlogging lately, and this has a pretty nice feature inside of the menu itself. So it has built-in wind filters. If you have a shotgun mic on here, you can also throw that on, so this way if there is any real harsh wind in the background or just going past the shotgun mic. In general, you're basically, it just kind of cancels all that out on top of, if you have a windscreen on top of your shotgun mic. So that's always a plus. You can also set manual audio on here as well. So if you have a specific mic that you know you need to tweak to a certain point, like if you need to record audio at negative 14 decibels because the microphone that you have always somehow records a little bit over 12 decibels, you can do that inside of this, which I think is also a nice feature. You can also see it too on the flip screen while you are recording, so you can always monitor your audio that way too, which is another nice feature. So for anybody that does their own vlogs and maybe just is kind of a little, I would say, fumbly with cameras and stuff, there is a nice little lock button on here. So if you are shooting and you have your settings set, you can basically throw this into the lock. Let's say maybe you just have it on auto ISO. Throw the lock button on here. This way none of your settings or anything gets messed up if you accidentally move a button or hit the record button. So when you're done recording, or if you want to stop shooting, or if you need to change the setting, you obviously have to unlock it. But it's a really nice feature for anybody that is kind of clumsy with cameras. Another couple of cool features I just want to touch on really quick. So on this camera on the top here by the shutter button, there is a multifunction button. There's also a wheel on the back here. These can be set to absolutely anything that your heart desires on this camera. So if you wanted to change your aperture, your ISO, your shutter speed, if you wanted to change in between settings of God knows what, you can basically set it up through the menu system on this camera. You can have this button control this for multiple things, as well as the RF glass. This is the Canon RF50. I have done a review on this before, probably going to have to do another 6-month review on this as well. This has 2 buttons on here, so you have a focus and you have a control ring. So you can switch to focus the lens and then you can switch to control it. I set this to aperture just because it's a little bit easier rather than having to fiddle with it, but same thing. If I wanted to switch aperture, I could also do that with the wheel on the back here. Multifunction button, I can hold this down and I can also hold the button down and I can move this wheel and that will change my ISO or my shutter speed, pretty much anything that I want to set that to. If I press that button a couple of times and move this wheel, I can change it to different settings. That's how you basically do that. It's pretty impressive, and the first time I got this, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Once I had this set up, I was ready to go and just ready to go out and shoot or whatever. So another win for the full frame, inexpensive, mirrorless camera, the EOS RP. So another thing that, like, it's really good for people that want to switch between settings really fast and don't want to have to fiddle with things on the screen. This camera on the top dial wheel up here has 3 custom settings, and it's a little bit tricky if you don't really know what you're doing at first, but it's pretty easy. So basically what you have to do is you have to basically go into manual mode and then you set your settings for those custom functions in the menu. So if you do vlogging, and let's say you want to go from 60 frames a second in full HD to 24 frames a second in full HD. I don't know why it doesn't do 4K, don't ask me, but you can set up your shutter speed, your ISO, your aperture, and all that stuff, and your video recording options. So this way, basically, if you want to do some slow motion on custom 3, switch it over to custom 3 and then just hit record. For my custom buttons, what I did was I set the ISO to auto and then I put it in 1080 at 60 with my shutter speed 1/25th of a second, obviously because I can't do the exact 180 rule with this camera, so I just got to get it as close as possible. And then basically if I wanted to do some slow-mo, I just slap that over to custom 3, hit the record button. When I'm done shooting, hit the record button, switch back over to either custom 2 or to movie shooting mode, and then I'm good to go. So something is a win for people that just need to switch and be real fast with shooting. And one of my favorite features I want to touch on with this camera specifically, so with DSLRs in general, DSLRs, they basically use a little mirror to bounce it through the lens so this way you can see what you're looking at. This uses the lens through the sensor, but the nice thing with that is you can actually live view crop in while you have the camera up to your eye, so you can pull focus that way. So you don't actually have to, like, you know, if you have your camera up here and then you gotta, like, you know, live view crop in and pull focus that way. No. You can hold it up to your eye, live view in, and pull focus while you still have it up here, so it doesn't look like you don't know what you're doing. I think that is probably one of my favorite features on this camera. I use it constantly to pull focus. It's super amazing. I don't really know how else to explain that to somebody that came from a DSLR to a full frame mirrorless camera, or just like a mirrorless camera in general. When you're able to use the EVF to pull focus while you have the camera up to your eye is just, it's heaven. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, your photos are going to come out much more sharp than they probably ever would have on a DSLR, even with autofocus. I'm just saying that. I'm just throwing it out there. So that is my absolute favorite feature on this camera. Now I'm going to get into the cons on this camera, but first, do you guys like this skin? So I don't know if you guys follow AlphaGuard or Lifeguard on Instagram. It's kind of hard to see. This is Arctic Camo. I actually won one from them. Unfortunately, they sent me the wrong one. I'm trying to get it swapped out, but it's pretty dope, right? Arctic Camo. They have like urban camo. That one is nebula, so it's like star clusters and stuff. It's pretty dope. I'm gonna have to see if I can get that one on here. I don't know if it's gonna work. That one's for an R5 though. Alright, so last but not least, we're gonna jump into the cons on this. Trying to make this as short as possible. So battery life, the LPE17s, obviously it is no laughing matter, and it is no surprise that these tiny batteries right here that also used in the Canon EOS Rebel SL3, SL2, probably some of the Rebel T6s or T5s or whatever. I don't understand it. Like, you have this powerhouse of a little, you know, mirrorless, full frame mirrorless camera, and you decide to put in these tiny little LPE17s. Like, I truly believe the battery that my Canon Rebel T7, if you could have fit one of those in here, probably would have lasted twice as long. One thing I hate about this, I am getting a vertical battery grip. It's a Velo one. I'm going to put this on here. Hopefully it works better. So I guess we'll see how that works. Didn't really want to have to buy a battery grip. I actually kind of don't like those. It just makes the camera look fucking weird. But that's just my own personal preferences. So anyways, the battery life on this is trash. The batteries are like 60 or 70 bucks a piece. So if you do plan on picking one of these up, probably gonna want to pick up an extra couple. I have 3 batteries total. If I do like a full day of shooting or recording, I can go and probably charge 1 or 2 depending on how much I'm shooting, while I'm also recording. So like, let's say if I was shooting on this and I had swapped batteries, I would be charging it right now while this other one is running, type of thing. And basically it's just a back and forth of just constantly charging batteries, and it kind of gets to the point where it's a pain in the ass. I believe there is a dummy battery that Canon sells, or there is an adapter that Canon sells where you can plug this in and basically just use it, and not really have to use a battery and charge it at the same time, type of deal, but just something to consider. The next thing I want to touch on, which I think is kind of a con, especially for I would say that this is more of a powerhouse than probably some of the cheaper DSLRs, or like even like the entry level, like mid entry level, like pro grade DSLRs that Canon offers. The high burst shooting mode on this, and even my Canon EOS Rebel SL3 shot at 7 frames a second in high burst. This shoots at 5 frames a second in high burst. I brought this down to the drift track in Clearwater a couple months ago, which I unfortunately right now, probably not going to be able to get back down there anytime soon because I work on Saturdays. Kind of sucks. But this really did not keep up with autofocus and trying to high burst shoot. I spent the majority of my night realistically just hand focusing and getting better shots than I could have with autofocus. So just something to keep in mind. If you're doing any sort of sports or action photography, really, this probably isn't going to be the camera for you. If you're more of one of those people that just wants to become a sniper and you just want to be able to hand focus quickly and shoot and get, like, you know, possibly better in focus stills, I think that you should be okay. Like I said, I brought this down to the drift track, and while I got better results with this and my Tamron 70-200 than I did with my SL3 and my 75-300, I still feel that I missed a lot of really good shots that just came either soft or just out of focus in general. So high burst shooting mode with autofocus probably not going to be your friend. And last but not least, the biggest pain in the ass with this camera, I will say to date, and this is just my own personal preference, I do a lot of photography, and sometimes I don't want to have to like hold it up to my eye, or if I'm shooting video and I don't. Oh, another thing too, I just want to add this. You can also use the EVS while you're shooting video. So if you want to do that and shoot video, you can. Anyways, so long story short, on the back here, there is like an auto off switch for the LCD. Right next to the EVF, when you put your eye up here, it turns off the LCD screen. So when that turns off the LCD screen, the image goes to the EVF. Now, if you have the camera with the flip screen out and you're trying to do something and you're holding it like this, so let's say you're shooting something that's out in front of you and you're holding the camera like this, and you use, as I do, my right hand to switch anything on the screen. So like if I wanted to switch from, let's say I was shooting in 1080 at 60 and I wanted to swap back over to 4K or 1080 24 or whatever, and my hand goes anywhere near this, it turns off. And I made that very clear in the first review I did on this camera, and I'm making that very clear on the second review that I'm doing on this camera. So it's one of those things where, like, if you're not self-conscious about it and you are constantly changing settings and stuff, if your hand gets anywhere near that, if your hand isn't exactly over like the hot shoe right here and you're doing stuff with this, it just turns off. It is by far one of my biggest pet peeves on this camera. I wish that there were like a sensitivity setting that you could like mess with. So like if you wanted this to be really sensitive, like as soon as you put your hand over it, it'd cut the screen off. Or if you wanted it to be like not as sensitive, like a low sensitivity setting to where like even if you put your hand over it, it wouldn't do it until this was completely covered type of deal. Because like if I held it up like this and it wasn't completely covered, the LCD screen I think should still be on. But no, this, if like even if you just like wave your hand over it, as soon as it sees something dark, it turns off that LCD screen and goes straight to the EVF. And if you're trying to do something and you're trying to hurry and do it, like it's such a pain in the ass. By far one of my biggest gripes on this camera. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys stayed all the way through. I know it's probably a little bit of a longer video. Probably just about as long as most of my other videos that I record. Seems like my videos are getting longer, but I'm trying to get faster at explanations type of deal. So anyways, if you guys stayed all the way to the end of this video, I want to thank you wholeheartedly. I hit 300 subscribers earlier, about a month or so ago, and I just basically, if you guys watch any of my videos, I thank you guys wholeheartedly. I am trying to make my content better. I know that some of my older videos were still kind of like wonky, I feel that I've gotten more into a groove of like how to make better YouTube videos type of deal. Also think that I'm probably going to start making more tutorials now. I have some stuff coming that possibly may or may not be interesting to some people. I know mostly doing reviews and stuff kind of sucks because I don't get anything for free. I have to buy everything. So just remember that when you're watching a small YouTube creator and you see them do a review on something, more than likely they purchased it for themselves and that's what they were interested in. So I thank you guys 100% wholeheartedly. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hopefully at some point, if I ever hit 1,000 subscribers and I start getting monetized and I'm able to afford other gear, I do plan on doing giveaways more often, just because I think doing giveaways gives back to the subscribers. So yeah, thank you guys. If you enjoyed this video, if it was at all helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, give it a like. If you didn't like this video, also give it a thumbs up. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit all the buttons, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
My bitch is bad and bullshit bad. Cooking up dope with a Uzi. My niggas are savage, ruthless. We got 30s and 100 rounds too. My bitch is bad.